All right, we're live. Yeah, I'm in the background trying to uh, figure out my technology, how to make one piece of technology work with another. I think I have it, but we'll see. I think it'll work together. If not, we'll carry on and we'll do it a different way. Uh, Trying to get my computer to work with my tablet, and Windows and Samsung or Android doesn't always work together the way it should. But anyway, here we go. Um, This is something that a debate has been going on, in the background in the manosphere for got to be at least a year and a half about the Black Brain Trust talked about institutions and bringing back this old rivalry supposedly between Booker T. Washington and W. Du Bois, between the integrationists or the civil rights folks versus the nationalists or separatists. And from what I can tell, this dates all the way back to um, the great debate or the great disagreement between Booker T. Washington and W. Du Bois. So it kind of came to a head because I've heard about it quite a bit, because I'm in the black nationalist sector, the pro-black sector, what do you want to call it, right? And this has been going on and on and on about the Atlanta Compromise and the view of the talented tenth Booker T. Um, the Du Bois camp and the integrationist camp and stuff like that versus the separatist camp, which is Booker T. Which Booker T. was not as separatist as people think. He really wasn't. But but that is where this the nationalism versus the I guess civil rights view or integrationist view comes from. It carries all of it. It's still today. But thing is, it came to a head with King and the Nation of Islam or Malcolm X. It was a thing with Garvey. But I decided to go ahead and investigate because every time I ask questions about this versus that, right, people give me old rhetoric and they don't give me complete answers, or they don't go into depth about why certain one um, strategy over another. They say they disagree with it. They throw ad hominems at the other person and blah blah blah, and they say they were hated and all the kind of anecdotes instead of saying, okay, what is the basis of their disagreement? Where does this come from? Did it work? What was one versus the other? Because in any strategy, there's drawbacks. Okay, there's drawbacks to every strategy on either side. And what you find out is there's somewhere in the middle of you take combining the two strategies that actually work because there's good parts on both sides. That's what Keynes did with the gold system and the fiat system, right? That turned into the dollar system that held sway until I guess the mid 70s. It still kind of holds sway a little bit, right? Instead of taking one versus the other, you kind of try to take the best parts of both and try to shore up the weakness of both. So just like any other fairly decent student, um, the verses, the verses is the damn issue. Brothers have to wake up. Well, it always is. Um, so, like any other good student, if you put their opinions together, you would have something done. Clearly, you cannot have state funding. I see. Well, that's true. It's very true. It wasn't even about state funding. Okay, um, it's about two different views of the world, and where does it come from? So what we're going to do is I found a professor that actually gave you a brief overview of the disagreement, and Booker T. Washington. And he had round one and round two, but I'm going to actually play round one, and we're going to talk about it because what a lot of people miss is the differences between the way the North and the South saw the Negro, what we call the Negro problem. And if I can, uh, hopefully this this flow will actually show up on on the StreamYards, so I can actually show you from the Mohawk Conference of 1890 that Rutherford B. Hayes actually chaired about the Negro problem and integration problem. And this is before the Plessy versus Ferguson. This is before the what we call the Atlanta Compromise. Okay, this is this is how one view versus the other, right? Versus how the northern view versus the southern view of how to handle black people. So, without further ado, I'm actually going to play this video from Professor Darius. Hopefully, he has sound. Okay, and I'll put the link in the in the comments, man. If you guys want to go get him subscribe and check out what else he's done. But I'm going to play this, and we're going to get into hopefully some of this, just an overview, because I just want to answer some questions and talk about it as I promised.
Reconstruction, Black leaders in the post-Civil War era responded in various ways.
Let me know if y'all can hear this. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear this. So I'll make sure that I don't have to go back and play it again. Okay, all right, here we go.
This series will explore those philosophical responses, assessing their strengths and limitations. W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington approached the world in ways that fundamentally opposed one another. In this video, we begin with a critique of W.E.B. Du Bois's framework of civil rights through the lens of his rival, Booker T. Washington. Round one, coming up next. Thank you for watching African Elements. If you're new to this channel, we create Black history and Africana studies content for the classroom and give it to the masses. We believe education should be free and accessible. If you'd like to support this work and keep this material free for everyone, you can join our wonderful Patreon supporters at the link below. Membership and access to ad-free videos starts at as little as $1 a month. Or if you like this content, smash that button, subscribe, and consider dropping a comment below. Speaking of smashing, let's start round one. After the Civil War, the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution promised Black Americans citizenship and equal protection under the law. Nevertheless, many states continue to deny Black people access to public facilities such as parks, libraries, swimming pools, theaters, restaurants, hotels, hospitals, and even cemeteries. In 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in Plessy versus Ferguson that racial segregation was legal under the U.S. Constitution based on the doctrine of separate but equal. In other words, the court found that the 14th Amendment that guaranteed equal protection under the law didn't guarantee integration, as long as the separate accommodations were equal. By design, the separate collection of segregation laws known as Jim Crow kept Blacks from gaining full political representation by denying them voting rights and other fundamental human freedoms. Some African American leaders pushed back by asserting their rights as citizens. Such an approach is known as the philosophy of civil rights. W.E.B. Du Bois became a leading advocate of civil rights in the early 20th century. William Edward Burghardt Du Bois was an American sociologist, historian, civil rights activist, Pan-Africanist, and author. Born in Great Barrington, Massachusetts on February 23, 1868, Du Bois grew up in a generation with no direct experience with legalized slavery. After graduating from Fisk University in 1888, he attended Harvard University, where he became the first African American to be awarded a PhD from the university in 1895. He taught at Atlanta University from 1897 to 1910, and again from 1934 to 1944. Du Bois emphasized a liberal arts educational philosophy that stressed the importance of sociology, history, and philosophy. His work as a civil rights activist emphasized political equality by attacking the systemic denial of political rights the Black community continued to experience. To that end, Du Bois and 28 other delegates met at Niagara Falls in 1905. The Niagara movement sought to end segregation and discrimination against Blacks through nonviolent means. It also called for equal access to public facilities such as schools, parks, libraries, transportation systems, regardless of race or color. Their strategy was one of protest and agitation. They staged marches, petitioned lawmakers, and wrote newspaper editorials, constantly reminding the white power structure of the injustice of racial subjugation of African American citizens. They demanded full political rights and social equality, equal treatment in public places, and an end to discrimination and segregation throughout the United States, including the U.S. military. In doing so, he forwarded a notion of the talented tenth. Du Bois believed that it was the talented tenth amongst Black intellectuals that, armed with a liberal arts education, was most capable of moving Black America forward by deconstructing the social barriers that held back the Black community. It was Du Bois's focus on race relations, economic inequality, education, and politics that contrasted most sharply with Booker T. Washington's emphasis on practical education and industrial training. In 1903, Du Bois published The Souls of Black Folk, a collection of essays that explored the history of Blacks in America and their struggle for freedom. One chapter in particular specifically called out Booker T. Washington and critiqued his approach to Black progress. W.E.B. Du Bois's contemporary and rival Booker T. Washington was born into slavery in 1856 on a plantation in Franklin County, Virginia. Contrary to Du Bois' vision of social justice and integration for Black Americans, Washington believed it better to remain separate from whites rather than attempt desegregation. As a native of the South who had experienced slavery firsthand, Booker T. Washington viewed Du Bois and his strategy of protest and agitation for civil rights as impractical and dangerous. From Washington's standpoint, public demonstrations were especially reckless after the emergence of the Ku Klux Klan, which threatened violent reprisals and even death for the most trivial of social missteps. Washington opposed the Niagara movement and sought to undermine it in every possible way. First, Washington sent spies to keep him informed as to the organization's participants. He then paid the newspapers to criticize the movement and ostracize anyone who took part in it. Washington's political influence and close ties with the white establishment allowed him to work behind the scenes to shut out people who supported the Niagara movement by ensuring their exclusion from federal appointments and jobs. Ultimately, Washington was successful and the Niagara movement disintegrated before it got off the ground. Nevertheless, Du Bois continued his efforts when he and other key players from the Niagara movement founded the National Organization for the Advancement of Colored People, or NAACP, in 1909. Their tactics included a reliance on judicial and legislative measures to provide legal protections for African American citizenship. It was a tactic the NAACP used consistently. Their initial success came in the NAACP's attack on the Grandfather Clause, which Southerners used to keep former slaves away from the voting booths. In 1915, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the Grandfather Clause in Gwynn versus the United States. The courts became the NAACP's primary weapon to such an extent they established a separate branch of the organization in 1940. With its own legal staff, the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund continued its assault on legalized segregation from the mid-20th century onward. Later, several strategically formulated lawsuits culminated in the famous Brown versus Board of Education decision. The 1954 case overturned the separate but equal doctrine that codified legal segregation in the Plessy versus Ferguson case of 1896. While the NAACP has much success to its credit, it's essential to be realistic about the meaning of those successes. For example, after Gwynn versus the United States outlawed the Grandfather Clause, the all-white primary quickly replaced it. The white primary effectively rendered the Black vote meaningless by barring Black candidates from running in the primary elections. After Smith versus Allwright outlawed the white primary in 1944, other methods of voter disenfranchisement quickly filled the void. Even in the NAACP's best-known legal victory, Brown versus Board of Education, the limitations of the integrationist approach become visible. The unanimous 1954 Supreme Court decision reversed Plessy versus Ferguson and overturned legally sanctioned segregation. Nevertheless, in 2004, the Harvard Civil Rights Project conducted a study to assess the decision's impact. The study concluded that 50 years after the landmark case, school integration was at the same level in 2004 as it had been in 1969. According to the report, 1 in 8 Southern Black students attends a school that is 99% Black. About a third attend schools that are at least 90% minority, including more than half of African Americans attending schools in the Northeast. The report concluded, "We are celebrating a victory over segregation at a time when schools across the nation are becoming increasingly segregated." It is here that one sees the potential advantage that Booker T. Washington's approach had over Du Bois's approach. Washington's ideology didn't rely on desegregation or a court system in which every victory advanced the movement toward an ever-receding goal line. Washington didn't concern himself with dismantling Jim Crow, attending white schools, or sitting at white lunch counters. Instead, his goal was to build economic independence. Through industrial education at his own Tuskegee Institute, Washington sought economic progress by having the Black community establish its own Black colleges and build their own lunch counters in their own separate Black America. Furthermore, whereas Washington remained neutral concerning Black people's involvement in U.S. military conflicts, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote an editorial calling for Black Americans to close ranks and support the United States during World War I. Because blacks were still denied civil rights in the United States, he was widely criticized for not taking the opportunity to demand racial justice. Du Bois asserted, "We of the colored race have no ordinary interest in the outcome. That which the German power represents today spells death to the aspiration of Negroes and all darker races for equality, freedom, and democracy. Let us not hesitate. Let us, while this war lasts, forget our special grievances and close our ranks shoulder to shoulder with our own white fellow citizens and the allied nations that are fighting for democracy." Du Bois faced criticism because of the contradiction he himself observed only a few years earlier in a 1914 edition of The Crisis. Whereas the United States Army sent the segregated all-black units that made up the Buffalo Soldiers out to the west to protect the white frontier settlements in a racist war against the Native Americans, this made for a contradictory situation, as Du Bois observed about Nogales, Arizona. While there were a plethora of colored troops, and there were also several large property owners among the colored people, the colored children of this town had to adhere to the state law that requires separate schools for white and colored. Was it realistic to expect Black people to gain respect, citizenship, and equality in return for loyal military service? Furthermore, the experience of the Buffalo Soldiers begs the obvious question. Was it feasible for Black people to expect to gain the respect of whites while marching under a banner of white supremacy? In this round, we looked at the philosophy of integration and civil rights and critiqued its limitations through the framework of Booker T. Washington's approach. In round two, we'll take a closer look at the strengths and limitations of Booker T. Washington's philosophy. In the meantime, who won this round? Let's have that discussion in the comments below. I'm Darius Spearman, and until round two, I'll see you in the comments.
We can't hear. I'm sorry. We don't have a home country. Okay, so basically, let me post this again. Because I always get that Asians. I don't see Asian or Arabs in American politics like they get rich. That's bullshit. They've been in American politics, in fact, international politics at a different level. Why? How you think Asians got rich, especially the Chinese and Taiwanese? Is because you sent your fucking uh, 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 chip trade to Taiwan in 1972. That's where they got their freaking money from. Okay, Koreans and Asians that was from that tech that we couldn't build here. That's tech. That's called what? Politics. Okay, different level of politics. Okay. The thing is, I'll read this later since you guys couldn't hear me. I was trying to add some noise, but thing is that the Mohawk Conference 1890. Okay, the difference between Du Bois and Washington. Okay, is that had two different worldviews. Was uh, Du Bois was born in the North. Okay, to a mostly white area. Went to school with mostly white people. Okay, Booker T. Washington is born in slavery. They have two different worldviews. In fact, I actually do it again. I won't read it again. But the thing is that the Mohawk Conference 1890 was saying the same thing. There was a different view of how the North and the West saw the South. Okay, the South was still bitter about number one, losing the war and having their former slaves, their former chattel, raised to um, equal citizenship. There's always been a bitterness, especially in the South, about equal citizenship for their former slaves that has never gone away. Not only for the against the blacks, but also the North by imposing it upon them. Same way, a lot of white people feel bitter about integration being imposed upon them. Integration was not just black folks agreeing to be integrated into white areas, right? It's bullshit. Basically, integration. In fact, there's I read this from what is it called? White Trash. Okay, I think it was chapter 8, where white people are actually bitter about the imposition of black folks into their areas. So, but basically, this is forced by your government because they want you to mix. They want, just like the Chinese did in China, right? The Chinese like 98% Han, like Japan is like 99% homogenous, right? That is the goal of any civilization, to be more homogenous. Okay, you go on to Mexico, you see some variation, but they're mostly homogenous after centuries of mixing. They're mostly homogenous. Okay, that is the goal. That's how come the Native Americans don't exist anymore. So you see this plight with this debate between W. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington, and basically Booker T. Washington, Booker T. Washington has a right had a very good reason to be upset with. No, Du Bois had a very good reason being upset with Booker T. Washington because he tried to destroy Du Bois's Niagara movement, which was actually trying for civil rights. He broke it up, as the speaker did say. So but the thing is, Booker T. Washington saw uh, that Du Bois's movement was actually agitating the white folks that still felt better about the elevation of black folks to actually attack them, which is probably true, because Du Bois Du Bois couldn't see the same kind of view, same kind of the same kind of view or the same kind of worldview that Booker T did. He couldn't. Just like like in the One Conference, that East and the West couldn't see things through Southern eyes. In other words, could you actually take former slaves that had been 2 or 300 years under harsh treatment and basically in 25 years make them full citizens, which when it took white folks thousands of years to actually come to that. That was always a question. That's what he was saying. is it better to leave those black folks down there in the hands of their southern former masters that knew them better? And that was the difference between um, Booker T and yeah, that's why there's so many fight audience on Twitter. We ain't gonna deal with that. Fight audience. That's a story for a different day. Y'all take that shit someplace else, okay? Y'all take that shit someplace else. That's not even about it. Yeah, they are heavily in politics. You know, TSMC. Why do you think TSMC is over here? Okay, heavily into politics. Anyway, let me play the. Let's see if I can play the other one. Let's see if I can find it. Round two. Let me play round two. Sorry about the. I had myself on mute. Let's do round two.
You're watching African Elements. In this video, W.E.B. Du Bois versus Booker T. Washington, Round 2. We continue the series on Black political thought as Black leaders sought a way forward after the failure of Reconstruction. This time, I address the strengths and limitations of Booker T. Washington's approach through the lens of his rival, W.E.B. Du Bois.
I disagree with him. You can't buy a rent. You don't have enough. We ain't got enough freaking money to buy a rent. Politicians, okay? And if you want to try to do this, you know, over a period of what, 50, 60 years, you can go ahead. But the needs of the society was going to outweigh the needs of a particular kind of people. If they want you to mix, you're going to mix. That's their theory. That's what they want. So what you want is irrelevant. Buying a politician here or there is not going to change the trajectory of a whole strategy. It's not going to change it. It's impossible. It's impossible. Go try it because look what's going on in Ukraine, man. They're spending trillions of dollars over in Ukraine right now for a strategy. What you want and what you're trying to buy with the little money that you can muster up to buy a politician is not going to change shit. Okay, I can tell you that. Not going to change shit. Anyhow, continuing.
All that coming up next.
Right.
Already a subscriber? Welcome back. If you're new to this channel, we create Black and Africana Studies content for the class. Special thanks to our Patreon members for their support. Videos for as little as $1 a month. In this video, W.E.B. Du Bois looked toward integration and civil rights as a means to Black social mobility. In doing so, he relied on a liberal arts and educational foundation to dismantle systemic white supremacy. His contemporary and rival Booker T. Washington put forward a competing educational philosophy based on an entirely different philosophical approach. Booker T. Washington was born into slavery in 1856 and became an educator and leader in the African American community. Washington's father worked for a mine owner in West Virginia where the family relocated after emancipation. There, young Booker T. Washington received instruction in reading and writing from the mine owner's wife. At the age of 16, Washington trekked to Virginia, where he attended Hampton Normal and Agricultural Institute. Samuel Chapman Armstrong, a former Union general, established Hampton Institute after the Civil War. In his book, Foundations of Industrial Education, Dr. F.T. Struck notes that Armstrong founded the institute to educate the freed slaves for the instruction of youth in the best mode of practical industry in its application to agriculture and the mechanical arts. Booker T. Washington would later structure his curriculum according to the pragmatic philosophy of vocational education that he developed at Hampton Institute. Rather than the liberal arts education that Black intellectuals like W.E.B. Du Bois put forward, Washington promoted industrial education. He believed that practical training would better equip freedmen to achieve self-sufficiency and self-determination. He argued that by doing so, Black people could gain economic independence from whites.
In other words, they said the same thing in the Wuhan conference, right? Basically, um, you already the skills, physical skills like that already existed in Black people. In other words, leverage what you already know, leverage what you already have, which makes sense. Okay, that part makes sense. Leverage what you already have, rather than the liberal arts education. Basically, most Black folks, the majority of Black folks, already had skills in growing, skills in mechanics, skill in building. Already had those skills. Leverage what you already know. So I agree with that.
Southern planters and thus better advocate for themselves politically. This philosophy became known as separate development because it sought to develop separate educational systems within each community. To that end, Washington founded the Tuskegee Institute in 1881, where he served as its first president until he died in 1915. Seeking to foster self-sufficiency wherein Black America could live free from white oppression, Washington did not concern himself with Jim Crow segregation. He didn't seek admission to white schools or lunch counters in the white community. Instead, he sought to establish Black colleges and the practical education necessary to develop Black enterprise and promote economic advancement in a separate Black America. Doing so freed him from the limitations of the civil rights movement, which relied heavily on the intervention of the federal government to achieve political equality.
But also the thing is that the white people are also in agreement with that, especially the white folks in the South. So um, that's how come. That's why Du Bois called it a compromise or appeasement, as Du Bois called it.
To promote his vision, Booker T. Washington delivered his most important speech at the Cotton States International Exposition in Atlanta, Georgia, on September 18, 1895. In what became known as the Atlanta Compromise, Washington articulated his pragmatic vision for Black economic progress. In it, Washington suggested that African Americans not agitate for social and political equality. Instead, Black Americans should seek to acquire technical education and vocational training to participate in the economic development of the New South alongside and separate from white Southerners. To those of the white race who look to the incoming of those of foreign birth and strange tongue and habits of the prosperity of the South, were I permitted, I would repeat what I say to my own race. Cast your bucket where you are. Cast it down among the 8 millions of Negroes whose habits you know. While doing this, you can be sure in the future, as in the past, that you and your families will be surrounded by the most patient, faithful, law-abiding, and unresentful people that the world has seen. In all things that are purely social, we can be as separate as the fingers, yet one is the hand in all things essential to mutual progress. The wisest among my race understand that the agitation of questions of social equality is the extremist folly, and that progress in the enjoyment of all privileges that will come to us must be the result of severe and constant struggle, rather than of artificial forcing. Booker T. Washington's Atlanta Compromise speech was essentially an appeal to the Southern white planter class to support his vision for the economic development of a separate Black community. In turn, he urged African American acceptance of Jim Crow segregation and accommodation to second-class citizenship. On the surface, this may seem like a limitation. Still, in following Washington's philosophy to its conclusion, one sees that the endgame made many of the issues of citizenship moot. Why bother with full citizenship in white America when one can enjoy the same benefits in a separate Black America? Why bother with court case after court case to dismantle Jim Crow segregation when one could build public accommodations in their own Black communities? Nevertheless, there are limitations to this approach, one of which lies in the appeal itself. Booker T. Washington's Atlanta Compromise gained broad support among Southern whites because of its acceptance of and accommodation to Southern racist ideals. The idea of separating the races into distinct spheres of influence appealed to the Southern white elite. As such, the former slaveholding class was among Washington's chief financial benefactors. Therein lies one of the limitations of Washington's approach. Was it realistic to believe that the Black community can develop economically without access to white capital and resources? Black history seems to indicate otherwise. For example, as we've seen, many African Americans headed west in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, seeking opportunities in autonomous Black communities on the frontier. However, the independent towns they established tended to be short-lived. Most famously, the once thriving Black town of Nicodemus, Kansas, was established in the 1870s, but fell into steady decline by the end of the 1880s. Because the region's climate didn't prove reliable for long-term community sustainability, Nicodemus could not survive without connecting to the more extensive Western infrastructure. Its fate was sealed when the Missouri Pacific, the Santa Fe, and the Union Pacific railroads bypassed the town. Booker T. Washington's appeal for financial support from the white planter elite seems to concede the point. Adherence to Washington's philosophy will consistently face the paradox that separation from white America may not be feasible without the economic support of white America. Additionally, Washington rejected the approach of W.E.B. Du Bois, the NAACP, and their emphasis on the legal system in pursuit of political and social equality. However, doing so opened up an entirely different problem. If separate Black communities did gain prosperity, how might that prosperity be protected? Without legal rights and protections, there was nothing to stand in the way of white mob violence. That same violence reduced the thriving Black towns in the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Rosewood, Florida, to ashes in 1921 and 1923, respectively. On a broader level, W.E.B. Du Bois pointed out the contradiction in Washington's educational philosophy in a chapter of his book, The Souls of Black Folk, entitled Of Booker T. Washington and Others. He advocates common school and industrial education and appreciates institutions of higher learning. But neither the Negro common schools nor Tuskegee itself could remain open a day were it not for the teachers trained in Negro liberal arts colleges. In this round, I examined the philosophy of separate development and critiqued its limitations through the framework of W.E.B. Du Bois's approach. Washington died in 1915, but Black leaders such as Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X would later pick up Booker T. Washington's mantle. They carried it forward in the 1920s through the 1960s, which later became the core of Black nationalist philosophy. In the wake of World War I, the largest proportional wave of European ethnic immigration entered the United States and introduced additional philosophies. The next round will examine the strengths and limitations of the approaches they brought with them, specifically communism and socialism. How might these new approaches be brought to bear in the Black struggle? I'll explore that in round 3. In the meantime, who won this round? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.
All right. Okay. Somebody's talking about the age difference. The age, okay, the age difference is one thing, but the thing is, it's not the age difference is not about has nothing to do with the worldview. Okay, they grew up in two different places. Okay, two different places, and they had a different view. Okay, the North and the West has a different view than the South did. And as he said, it was accommodation to the white folks. And like I said, as he said, neither both systems have limitations. And as the professor says, at some point you're going to have to actually tap into the national system, which is white. If you want to trade, if you want to sell some things, you want to import export things, you can't do it separately. You don't have access to that. That kind of stuff is not only economic, but it's also political. Without politics, you cannot access those systems. Without policy, you cannot access those systems. Okay, and basically the same thing is said about like he said about teachers. Everybody can't be a woodworker. Everybody can't be a field hand. Everybody can't be a cotton picker. Okay, if you want to elevate, at some point you're going to have liberal arts schools, and that kind of um, discussion is going on today, especially for Black boys and Black men. That everybody wants to push Black men into trade or into the military instead of training Black boys to be flexible if they want to have a PhD in philosophy or have uh, a trade school certificate in woodworking or ironworking or welding. As a real as a sellout thing is, he didn't see it as selling out because um, he believed in it. Okay, he believed in what they call accommodation. He wasn't a sellout. His worldview says this is the most practical way out for Black folks. Eventually, if you work hard enough, you serve them enough, you develop your own towns, you will actually eventually earn the respect of white folks. It's not always true. The small hats found that out. That's not always true because they had banks, they had education, they had industries. And guess what happened to them? Okay, without social and political protection, protection under the law, that stuff was always there. Why do you think they founded the NAACP with Du Bois? Because they knew better. You do need both styles. So, and the thing is that um, also the thing is about this is that even though there are elements that are still with us, patterns that are still with us, okay, you cannot take a strategy that was meant for the 19th and the early 20th century and put it into the 21st century. Okay, it's not going to work, especially since uh, it's not the pattern, but the thing is, especially since the strategy of the United States is to force you to mix. What do you think? What do you think that gentrification is for? Okay, Why do you think? Shout out to Jason Black for putting out the documentary Gentrified. Okay, it's to break up black neighborhoods. Okay, you have stop and frisk going on in New York again. They're gonna force you to mix. That's why they put Section 8 women out in suburbs. Okay, I don't know why you went to. Well, I don't know if you would go into. I don't know why you would go into debt for trade school when community colleges teach that stuff. Trade school's fine, but thing is, a trade school's supposed to have you earn money when you get out. It's something practical. We got a capital and wealth problem. Okay, your problem. The problem is, it's not a capital and wealth problem. It's a fucking policy problem. It's a freaking policy problem. Your access to wealth, especially in a system like this, is a policy. Okay, if they take what you're supposed to get access to capital, access to wealth, access to banking and the loans and stuff like that, they give it to white women instead of you. What's going to happen to your wealth? We've done this before. In 1964, we talked about the when they put sex into the Civil Rights Bill, and then in 1972 with affirmative action, what happened? Where did most of those dollars go? They went to white people. They went to white women. That's why the wealth of white people doubled or tripled between that time. Between 1964 and 1980, the wealth tripled for white people over black people. That's policy. You cannot separate policy from economics. You can't. I'm sorry. Even down to exporting jobs out of the country. Okay, that's policy. Okay, your government has to allow that. Title 9 affirmative action is actually Title 9 is different than affirmative action. The affirmative action bill was actually signed basically not bill, but the plan was actually signed by President Johnson in 1968, 1969, just before he left office. Most major corridors will see a correlation between crime rates, stats, and the closing of housing projects. That's part of it, but basic crime starts when you actually take industry out of the country, out of your area. It's like Detroit. Why is it black conservatives ignore white women and white people as the biggest benefactor from it? Is because it doesn't fit their narrative. And that's why they call them bootstrappers. Yeah, speaking about it, bootstrappers. Okay, it's policy. We don't do enough policy. Now, believing that you can actually alpha your way out of this stuff is impossible. Okay, we Booker T tried that, for 100 years. Okay, Booker T tried that, and we tried it. Okay, uh, they just ship your industry out. They pull money out of your neighborhoods. Okay, look at the way they actually um how they actually actually evaluate your house, right? Okay, assess your house. A white person is house with the same house like a mile away is worth three times yours. That's wealth. Access to wealth, access to capital that you don't have. That's policy. Those are laws. A lot of what you have right now, okay, really is because of the Kerner Commission in 1968. The affirmative action plan for black people. Okay, the ability to actually have FHA loans, just like the white people have. A lot of your GI bills, you weren't getting it until the affirmative action plan of 1968. Okay, you weren't getting it. Yeah, it is bootstrapism. The thing is, the thing is that uh, skills and resources and picking yourself up by your bootstrap and separation is fine if you still have access to the networks of wealth. Okay, the small hats, because of banking, were actually given access to the networks, to the wealth networks, to act because the banks were given equal status. Okay, black folks even today, their banks are in trouble. Okay, they were always under the thumb. In fact, that if I find, I'll actually say actually play it for you. Okay, Robert F. Smith was talking to Earn at Your Leisure. He was saying is that the reason that black companies don't do as well as other companies is because they don't have access to capital. Okay, so how come you don't have a black Microsoft or a black Amazon access to capital? The drugs came in during this basically the civil, not the Civil War, but after the World War II, um, and not just for us. That is the, in fact, that's the neoliberal. We'll actually do a, a, a reaction to um, a neoliberal lecture that was done by UCL. Okay, so my neighborhood growing up was when it was mostly black and similar in quality, built to a white neighborhood, but the value of my neighborhood by being black was assessed at a lower value. Yeah, and still today, but that's policy. No, there's no black Morgan and Morgan. There's no black Johnson and Johnson either. Well, yeah, the doing that, they could have, they could have built, whole new neighborhoods for black people if they wanted to. The thing is, what is good neighborhoods without jobs? Racism. You mean racism? The thing is we didn't talk about racism. Racism is a given. Okay, policy is what we're talking about. Policy is what I'm talking about. Yeah. Well, the thing is that they have a different worldview. You know, and Booker T was thought as better to accommodate whites and try to build and have them funded because the North by policy said we need to educate these folks and actually integrate them. Well, even then, integrate them into the family of Americas. They said that in the Mohawk Conference, right? Many times. How do you do it? They thought it gradually do it by teaching them, giving them skills and them building and stuff like that, which they tried, right? The thing is the violence, that happened. Most of your people who hung were black businessmen. Okay, they weren't protected. That's why. Why you think black folks fled the South? Okay. If it was working so well, and basically they're building their own neighborhoods and building their own structures, they were perfectly fine in their own neighborhoods. Why do you think they fled? Yeah, the breaking up black family is policy. Okay, it is policy, strategy. Why do you think the first thing they did for civil rights is what? Desegregate what? The schools. They did that first. The schools first. It's called mixing. Well, the things to even allow you to actually do it, right? Why do you think women are allowed to do it? It's because of policy. That's how they were allowed to do it. They basically the federal government actually forced or incentivized uh, companies to actually do it. You want to do business with us? Guess what you got to do? I've always seen the disagreements, but never with this perspective. You know, the thing is, on this channel, I always emphasize the worldview of people. Okay, what's the person's worldview? How do they see the world? Because you think you're 100% right, but the thing is, from your vantage point, but how do they see it, and and why do they see it that way? The thing is that Black and Latino coalition, they come from a different. They're immigrants. They come from a different place. Their worldview is not going to be your worldview. And plus, the Latinos were white up until 1970. The Civil War, white people owned a lot of wealth in America. They had a lot of skills. But the thing is that even then, um, they didn't get the land grants that white people got. How are you going to beat that? Um, you can't. The thing, even then, you got to have contracts. Okay, you just can't run trucking companies without contracts. You do have access to contracts, access to loans. Trying to take over something is y'all think this stuff is easy, man. Everybody says, "Well, I want them to run this." Y'all think this stuff is easy, and don't think you're going to get pushback and competition like it's a level playing field, and it's not. Hell, um, even your internet, okay, your internet addressing, right, was actually designed by four black men that actually wanted to um, turn it into a private company, right? It was taken from them and given to somebody else. Taken from them. The guy that came up with the IP address, right? Black guy. He designed it to actually around the idea of the post office. You don't hear about him because they took his idea. They had access to capital. He didn't. It's called policy. You can't. You have to have both. Be just the military is about 28% black female. I don't. No, I don't think there's that many females in the. No, I don't think there's that many black females in the military, man. I really don't. You gotta shoot me. You gotta point me to something, man. I don't think so. I don't think there's that many females in the military. 28% black female. I don't think so. SBA is supposed to be getting black. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. No, the thing is, SB. The thing is blacks versus whom? Female women. SBA works for white women. Yeah, and no, yeah. People pulling numbers out of their ass. Yeah, but the thing is, who's going to train them? If only 10% of your black boys can read at grade level, how are they going to be teachers? How are they going to be teachers? If you can't get to the black boys, how do you train the teachers? A lot of your black men only read at eighth grade level. How are they going to be teachers? And where do they go to school to be teachers? No, well, that's true. Not everything, but some things. In military, is 88% men. That's true. I think NYC is the only place that had something like that. I wasn't with Latinos per se, but with Puerto Ricans, specifically Black Panthers and young lords. Well, basically, Afro Latinos are considered black. Puerto Ricans are actually considered black. Look it up. You don't have to believe me. Look it up. Study just came out. I've done videos on that. Look it up. Black teachers get extreme pushback even when they do make it to get into the classroom. That's why you need all male schools for black boys because of that. I have to go back and look him up. Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they say they are. Okay, what are they classified as? Truth be told, why don't you go out? Why don't you go out and walk with the cop and say that you're not black? See what happens. Anyway, last questions. I think Gigi might have something going. Let me check if Gigi's got something going. I don't see anything. I don't see anything. I don't think he has anything going. Anyway, I'm not black emoji. A lot of Puerto Ricans actually considered black. Most of them are. Well, yeah, there would be because California, Florida, and Texas, they come from different places. They don't come from the United States. They're not local born. Okay, I'm in California. They come from Guatemala, Mexico, Nicaragua, Honduras. That's where they come from. They're foreigners. I just got from working in Puerto Rico. Yeah, okay. Yeah, doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what they say. It's what you classify it as. Yeah, single mothers are in control of these boys. That's the problem. They're not letting their boys go to all male schools. They want them. If they will support it if it's they'll support it. Trust me, they'll support it. It's available. They'll support it. Or you can legislate it. If the black boys are doing much better in black schools than the local school, they'll start sending them there. Trust and believe. Black one actually lazy. It's crazy how our ancestors had to get normalized to violence. Wonder what psychological effects it had on them. Still has it on us. Passport OG. That's why when you went to Japan, you didn't feel that pressure, did you? He did. Dr. Neil, you want to come up? The thing is that um, I hate this dispute that went on between them. Right, this the rivalry that still exists because you have to understand each man's point of view, and neither one of them were actually 100% right or 100% wrong. You actually needed both. That's the problem. That's what Booker T didn't see, or the boys didn't see the same thing. You needed both. With a patent right, bunk. Okay, go back and look at okay. Google's algorithm or their search spot is based on Insular, right? Insular by called Promise Software, right? That was stolen by the federal government. Famous case, stolen. Guess what? Guess what happened to their patent rights? You think black churches have a better shot at forming a black male pedagogue? Probably not because the who runs the black church, black women, and the 90% of black kids go to public school. Even in Puerto Rico, I didn't feel the pressure. Might as well have been in Angola. I don't know. Were you in Angola? Gotta have both. Who facilitates skills and training? Okay. Any other country? How do they facilitate skills and training? Is it individuals or the government? Where do you get skills and training from? The vast majority of people. Okay. This link is for the doc. Okay. If he wants to come up, he always uh, give my PhDs the floor if they want it. So this link is for the doc. Okay. Yeah. Look at what. Look at the Indian. Look at the Chinese and Indians. Right. How do you think they got their education? Okay. To do chips and do software and stuff like that. Right. Where do you think that came from? They did it by themselves. How do you think they got educated to take over? Where did they get the money from? The Chinese actually finance the education of these children, the education of these people to do what they do. Same reason you got women in all these positions. The government actually financed this. Even your black women, it's financed. Okay, nobody can get anywhere by their bootstraps. It's impossible. It's a fallacy. Even even the conquistadors were financed. Okay, by the government entity. The whole, when immigrants came over here, they had to have help from the government. They couldn't do it by themselves. It's financed. There's no such thing as bootstraps. It's bullshit. About austerity, yeah, the stuff. She actually breaks it down uh, about us, which is what we're going through right now. The thing the thing is we always look. And my thing with this, I mean, this is my thing with this space and my place in it, right? Uh, I don't like navel gazing. Okay, I don't like um, people thumping their chest like they have the complete answer, and they don't. You know, skills and resources only go so far because you have to have a government and a market to back it. Your country facilitates the market. I'll wait a few more minutes for Doc, see if he's going to come up. If he doesn't, then we'll close it out. I'm looking for a version of Chinatown, Mexican communities. It's called the ghetto. Okay. Where do you think Chinatown gets its money from? They have Chinese banks. And when was the last? Let me ask you this, man, mentally, Jilly. When was the last time you seen the Chinatown being burnt down? Maybe the last time you seen the Chinatown burnt down. HBCUs are too expensive. Well, the thing is, you can't send 60% of your people, 50% of the people, um, to four-year colleges and expect the government to be able to actually, afford it. They can't. Atlanta and the surrounding areas aren't looking too good. I don't. Well, I've never been to Atlanta. I wouldn't know. Why aren't they looking good? You guys are there. Why aren't they looking good? You guys are there. You guys can't walk around and figure out your own problems. What's up, Little Rock? Many HBCUs are state schools and have solid teacher training programs. Okay, there he is. What's up, Doc?
Hey, 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 what's going on?
Speak to me.
This is good stuff, good stuff, good stuff, man. Listen, I just wanted to just chime in. I know you on your way out and everything, man. And
Uh huh.
yeah, I put it in the link, man. It was dangerous. The South was very dangerous, as you know,
Mhm.
as everybody knows. And one thing that we have to, always keep in mind, Booker T. Washington, his narrative was, directed mainly to white people,
Yeah.
especially white people in the South. Um, it's not often recognized that, in a very covert way, he did support some civil rights legislation for black people.
Mhm.
Um, and he could not. So the thing is that it was deadly for someone in his position to directly and overtly push for, as Du Bois talked about, agitation.
Mhm.
And so there was a covert interest that was always in play, which was never really articulated. You know what I mean? And I agree that the industrial strategy that he had, had some severe limitations.
Mhm.
Um, but um, I think that there was also the intention that politics would also come into play at some particular time. Um, and the larger issues, thing about Booker T. Washington always to keep in mind is that, globalization, we talk about globalization today, but, globalization is an ongoing process.
Right.
Um, and in his lifetime, industrialism was a part of globalization, you know. And so he was in lockstep with that whole process of globalization in terms of what was happening in the industrial world at that time.
Yeah.
Um, and I think there are people who have characterized Washington um, as a fox, as someone who did not. I guess you could say he was kind of duplicitous.
Uh huh.
That is that you show one face to the white public, but you have a different face, a private face that is more cunning, um, and that kind of gets lost. The other thing is the whole issue of agitation. So, talking about Du Bois, and you're right, we have to deal with policy. You have to deal with the higher concerns in terms of um, people being educated in the liberal arts. But the thing that we have done is that we've gone too far, or we've gone too extreme in terms of agitation. That is, it's like let's talk about today's context.
Uh
Kind
huh.
of extreme and excessive protests when you focus all your energies on um, the kind of protests that we see, the kind of street protests or whatever, without getting into the nuts and the bolts of policy. That is, you can't. It has been very detrimental to black people to just be a perpetual grievance class.
Mhm.
That is especially the black elites. And so right now, what we're looking at, our grievance class is primarily female.
Yeah.
It's primarily female. It's based on victimization. It's based on shame. Um, the need to be right and all of that. Yeah, all of that. That's basically what it is. And um, I think one thing that Washington understood um, is that too much of that in this excess can lead to backlash. That is, if you are perpetually aggrieved, and that's what's going on right now. So you become so perpetually aggrieved
Uh-huh.
that the dominant class becomes insensitive.
Yeah,
It
tone
becomes,
deaf. Yeah,
yeah,
tone deaf.
yeah, it becomes indifferent
Mm-hmm.
to you, and that kind of indifference can lead to a serious backlash. And so I think we're seeing parts of that right now with all the stuff with so-called critical race theory and
Mm-hmm.
all the other gender ideas that have been married to it and everything. Um, people like DeSantis and that ilk and everything, and so we've gone we've allowed the black middle class that is female to put black people in a very precarious situation, you know, because the reality is that Booker T. Washington was, and this was the genius of him. There was a concern about the bottom. What do you do with the bottom? What do
Yeah,
you do with the so-called lower class,
yeah.
the working classes and stuff like that? And the perpetually aggrieved middle classes, which are now black and female,
Yeah.
are putting their lives at risk. In terms of backlash. Now, I just give you an example. So, with criminal justice, we're seeing that now with criminal justice. We're getting ready. Basically we're back in the law and order, you know, um, phase. In terms of politics, in terms of extreme sentencing and everything like that, we might see some new crime bills around the corner,
Y-
man.
you could, but I doubt it because if you start crime bills, then you're going to have to go after uh the uh the me- the meth heads
Hmm.
and the people, the guys on fentanyl. Okay, I don't think that's probably why you won't see it.
Hmm. Hmm. No, no, no. I agree with you in part, but in terms of what's happening with the street crime, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's just a conservative canard. It never goes away. And what happens is that the neoliberals,
Mm-hmm.
they typically tend to concede to that. You know what I mean? The way in which Clinton did back in the '90s, um, and even with when Biden and Kamala Harris came into
I mean,
office in 2020.
you can do it if you can afford to do it. The reason
Yeah,
Obama took it out is because you can't afford to do it anymore.
yeah,
If you can afford to do it, then you can. But the thing is, can you afford to do it?
yeah,
And
yeah,
with the masses of people that you're gonna have to put in prison.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, 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 I agree, and that's why so I told the brothers, man, I'm getting ready to submit my book is already done, um, and I've got a whole chapter on law and order in that text, and so I'm thinking about all this stuff, and I deal with backlash and everything, but I think yeah, just the larger issue, Booker T. Washington was a gambler, and he did see some things
Hmm.
because the reality, even though black people did flee the South, uh, there was a little bit of room for some development, um, which culminated actually in the civil rights era. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I mean the black elites, the elites who led that
Hmm.
in the '50s and the '60s were primarily from the South.
Yeah.
And so they had the infrastructure, they had the institutions. What happened in Alabama, in Florida, and other places, interestingly, didn't happen in Chicago. Didn't happen in some of the other. Didn't happen in parts of New York. New York City,
Hmm.
uh, because as with Moynihan and everything, with the migration, because the migration was also a gamble. You know what I mean? And that led to further fragmentation because black men couldn't get jobs many times. When they moved to the cities and all that. Um, and when we talk about the black family, one of the legacies in terms of nuclear families,
Hmm.
um, is that of the South. You know what I mean? And so because it was rural, it was agrarian,
Hmm.
and there was not a whole lot of governmental you know
Interfere.
intervention.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah. What happens when your agrarian lifestyle goes from like 90% down to 3% or
yeah,
6% what it is now, right? What do you do with those
yeah,
people?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, and so I agree. Yeah, yeah. The thing is that both of them, Du Bois and Washington, they both were right. um, it's just the issue of excess um, that I think that we have to, be concerned about. You know what I mean? So on the one hand, with Washington, you know, that excess in terms of being too confident about what you could do at an entrepreneur level
Mm-hmm.
without policy on one
Yeah.
hand, over against the excess of agitation when it doesn't pay attention to policy, and when they're agitating. Here's the other thing:
Mm-hmm.
when the agitation itself, if it is effective, it only enfranchises the black elite.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so as we see right now, the greatest beneficiaries of this whole agitation, and pressuring the government and even corporations, it is only benefiting a small number of black people. You know, and so Cornell West has already, he's made his announcement about running for the.
What do you think? What do you think about it? I call Cornel West the Black Bernie Sanders. Well, what do you think about
Yes,
it?
I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing. Because here is the thing. So
Mm-hmm.
Cornell West has tried in his career to incorporate, um, the very best of a Washington and the best of Du Bois.
Right.
That is, kind of have this type of link faith thing. So we have to deal with both the elite
Mm-hmm.
and the masses, and you have to pay attention. You have to pay attention to capital.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah. And to your question, what you were saying, I think it's a good thing, because what he's going to do, and I hope that he can successfully do this, is put pressure on both parties. His choice of going with the People's Party as opposed to running as an independent with the Democratic Party, that gives him a lot of room to talk about, the working class, to talk about poor people and stuff like that, and
Mm-hmm.
policy in ways that you know corporate Democrats and corporate Republicans refuse to. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah. They can't bite the hand that feeds you. So.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And he's 70 years old. He's put in his time. Um, I think that this is, his last. I think he sees this as you know, the culmination of a career. Um, because there have been some. I've talked to people personally who's been critical of his, um, I guess, reluctance to do something like this. To engage not just as a critic on the outside, but dealing with the internal infrastructure, um, in terms of policy making and everything like that. Um, and I'm not as critical as others, because he did make attempts, like in the '90s, to push Bill Clinton. Uh, in many of his policy endeavors, Clinton just shrugged him off. When Obama came around, I think, because he was so critical of Obama, he was just dismissed by Obama.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He saw Obama for what he was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if anything,
Mm-hmm.
I think that the pressure is good, um, that you see there, and it's important to note. Du Bois. You know, you can say, he was accused of being a communist um, during his
He was.
lifetime, and he
He,
was. Yeah,
he was.
yeah, he was.
he, he was a He was a Marxist. Let's get it right. He's a Marxist. Let's get it right.
Yeah. But Cornell, he's that democratic socialist. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think closer to FDR than to Trotsky. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting to see, um, what happens, going for you. But I think that for the most part, and a lot of your stream, man, it's kind of you call yourself a pragmatist. I'm a pragmatist also. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
you've got to get at that middle. You know, um, and not I don't want to call it being a centrist or what have you.
No,
But
no, well, yeah, I'm agnostic to it all. So,
yeah,
I think the closest political theory I have is to John Mearsheimer, uh,
gotcha,
structural realist.
gotcha, gotcha. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I look forward to seeing what is happening. But I just want to say this, man. I know you got to go and all that.
Hmm.
But yeah, Booker T has gotten a bad rap over the last um, 70 years. And
I,
because of
I,
he's
I,
been reduced to it. Go ahead.
I don't know, man, because um, to a lot of nationalists, Booker T is a hero.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, look at Dr. Claude Anderson. He's a hero to
oh
Dr.
yeah,
Claude. Yeah,
yeah. But
and there's a lot of Garveyites that Booker T's a hero to.
yeah. But here's the thing among the elite, the
Okay,
black elite,
okay.
the black elite.
The
See, man,
talented 10th, huh?
the talented 10, yeah, the talented 10. They
Okay.
they would not let go of their demonization of Booker T. Washington. You know what I mean?
He was a commoner, a former slave, so he wasn't of them.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other part of it, man, is
Hmm.
that like I said, man, in terms of him being like a fox, you know, um, he was very deliberate in terms of him trying to manipulate white psychology in the South. And
I don't think so. I think he knew what he's working with, and that's why I probably probably have to go through that chapter in the Mohawk Conference book, right? Because that is what he was saying was exactly what they wanted. So he's following their playbook because they're willing to fund it. I think they said they funded 80% of black education. So you're getting the white dollars anywhere to actually fund these schools. These schools were not funded by black people. They're actually funded by white people in white states. So basically, and this is part of their strategy. Even down to the skills and abilities where they really didn't believe in black men actually reading. Okay, because they said it was unnecessary. So a lot of stuff he actually drew that was already there. He didn't have to convince them. And he said, "Okay, if this is what you guys want, we'll give it to you. Okay, just fund the education and skills of my people. We'll make it. He cut a deal,
oh yeah,
which I don't blame him. Like Martin Luther King cut a deal.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And you have to. I mean, just reality. You have to deal with the context that you're
yeah,
in.
yeah, yeah.
And you can't go overboard with utopianism. You know,
Uh, well,
and
yeah, I think that's why I was saying that the northern view of the South and the southern view is completely different. That's
oh
their
yeah,
worldview is completely different, right? Because where you are, like Du Bois didn't have to deal with the Ku Klux Klan and the racism and stuff like that down there, like Booker T did.
yeah. And the thing was, he was driven out the South. You know what I mean? Du
He was,
Bois.
yes, he was
Yeah,
from the South.
when he was in Atlanta, he was driven out the South because of stuff he was writing and saying
Yep,
and everything. And it was safer. It was safer for him to be in New York
yeah, he was.
and throw stones at the South. You know what I'm saying? And it was safer for Booker T. Washington's New York critics and Boston critics
Hmm.
to throw stones at him because they were in New York, they were in Boston, they were in the New York, that northeastern corridor.
Yeah, Booker T threw some stones back now,
Oh,
so
oh no, he did more than throw stones. He destroyed some careers.
he
You
did.
know, yeah, he destroyed some careers because he had that Washington machine.
He did. He did. Yeah, yeah. So when people say it was completely a black enterprise, we have to be accurate about it. No, he was. He did accommodate. Let's get it. Don't get it twisted.
Oh,
He did it,
oh yeah, oh
but
yeah,
out of necessity, though.
no, absolutely. And it's funny we in this black manosphere,
Mm. Yeah.
they were just as explosive um, as we are, except they might have been more erudite.
Martin Luther King was an accommodationist too.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, so
oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
he cut deals. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, man, I don't want to take up all your time, man. I just
Oh no, no, you guys always have the floor. So if you're up here 3 hours, that's where we're gonna be for 3 hours. Okay.
yeah, just and this is
But go ahead and pimp your book, and your book's not out yet.
no, it's
Okay.
not out. It's not out,
Okay.
man. So
Does it have a name yet?
yeah, it's well, I don't want to listen here, man.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. All
I
right.
don't want to listen here, and yeah, so it I submitted in August, and then
Okay.
it goes through a review process, and
Okay.
they do what they do, man.
Okay.
But yeah, this is, I mean, this is great because here's the thing, man. We've lost, I think, in the larger culture, and this is one of the criticisms that I'm leveling in my book. We've lost the
Okay.
ability to go back and forth, and to have contesting ideas. And here's the other part of it. Like again, going back to our female elite, um, they have an aversion towards the kind of, we already know this, back and forth debate, that took place over 100 years ago. You know what I mean? Black people have always argued this stuff out, man,
Hmm.
and we are in a place now where it is the complete antithesis of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because we have the cancel culture and all that kind of stuff. But um, you know, fortunately, because of globalization and technology, man, there's only so much that they can censor.
Yeah.
Um,
Passport OG said you need to open up your membership so they can
okay.
actually donate to you, sir,
Oh,
on
okay.
your channel.
Ah, okay, okay. I
Okay.
haven't. I still got this janky thing going on here, man.
Yeah, well,
I haven't.
it's passive cash flow does not hurt.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you,
I,
Passport
I,
OG.
I'm not saying that you need it, but the thing is, just in case, a few extra dollars for for some drinky
Absolutely,
drink don't hurt. Okay.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, yeah. And just for you got, for FYI, yeah. Word has gotten out, man. I mean, I'm getting some feedback from some higher ups about the manosphere, and
Mm-hmm.
my contact in particular.
Okay.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm being policed. I put it like that. So
Well, thing is, you got to do what you got to do, man. Protect your neck at all times. That's what I would say.
absolutely,
So.
absolutely,
So that
absolutely.
we try to actually have you guys adjacent and not part of. Okay. Officially, all the PhDs are adjacent. Okay, even Green Gorilla is adjacent, not part of. They're not officially Manosphere. Okay, for all y'all listening, they're adjacent. They're here to teach us, not be part of us. All right.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. But cool, man. I'm gonna drop down, man, and I mean, I would, stay, but I don't. That's all I really wanted to
Oh, I appreciate you for
input.
putting that in. You know, enlightening us because yeah, you probably studied this most of your life. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, like I said, man, this is, with the new work and everything that I got, man.
okay,
All this stuff is there, man, and and just for you guys to know, man. I mean, yeah, I counted the costs when I came out here, man. I understood what the stakes were, and felt the need to be a part of this, man. I know that we are, we're moving the needle and
yeah,
everything, and forcing people to consider things, and that they, up to this point, have basically
yeah,
dismissed.
oh, yeah, yeah. If you wonder where the ice cube effect came from, you're looking at the gentleman right here. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Well, I'm sure they have told you about that particular.
no, 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 no,
Oh,
no, no.
they haven't tapped you on the shoulder about that yet. Okay.
Uh,
Oh,
uh,
never
what,
never
what,
mind. Never
and,
mind.
what?
As soon as you said it, I said, "Oh boy, it's gonna cause a stir." Right? 2 years later, boop,
Here we
popped up.
are.
Here we
Here,
are.
here, here we are, man. But yeah, man. It I think 2024, man. We getting ready to go into another interesting, um, season with all of this, man. And like I said, with Cornell West, I don't know what's going to happen to Gangster Trump. He look like
Yeah,
he
yeah,
might be doing some time.
I don't. The thing is that okay. The thing is that if you're a former president, okay, they don't look kindly to you running again, right? So you're
Yeah.
supposed to go away, count
Oh,
your pennies, you write your books, and say retire, such as Miss Clinton did, Mrs.
yeah,
Clinton did. Okay,
yeah,
so come she's not running. But if you do,
yeah.
you know, all the dirt they do have on you that they choose not to put in the public, okay, that's gonna come out. I think the cleanest president I've ever seen was probably Barack Obama,
Oh,
probably because he's black. I
oh,
don't, I could not find anything that he's ever done that could come back and bite him. Previous to him being president,
no, 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 no.
I can't find it.
And I tell you, I just to give you some inside baseball, because I've known some people who are kind of adjacent to him,
Mm, mm, mm,
and they did some real damage control way
mm-hmm.
he uh, before he uh, got the nomination, man.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. His stuff is sanitized because I did look for
yeah.
a long time, and I still look and I still can't find anything. And I actually deal with conspiracy theorists, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if they can't find it, then it's sanitized. It's really
it is.
sanitized.
It is sanitized, and some people were forced to go away permanently. So
Not unlike the his supposedly baby mama that tried to run down the gates of the White House. Yeah,
uh-huh.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
but never mind. That never happened
no, 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 no. It was just made up.
though.
Made up. All right. Well, I'm checking out, man.
All
Thanks
right,
again,
Doc.
bro.
All
All
right,
right.
Doc. Yeah, when you do a show on Cornell, I would like to know when it is. I
Okay.
might join you.
Okay.
All right.
We'll do. All right.
All right.
Peace.
All right. Peace out. Anyhow, you folks. See what it is. Seems like there's no best choice for black man. It's the less of whatever you can stand. Get your passport and go figure it out. Even when you get your passport, man, it's no easy deal. And most people don't have the gumption or guts or the fortitude to actually get their passport and go someplace else. Trust and believe I tried. I try to encourage people to actually do that, but it's still less than 1%. Not quite that. Okay, not quite that. Not quite son of a bush. Basically, more like uh, more like a son of the crown. Let's put it that way. I'm starting to run a business outside of sales in Kenya, and it's not looking favorable. Uh, Basically, what you have to do is connect. You got to find out what Kenya has that America wants. You still have a big black market in the United States. Go back and look at Shea Moore should actually use that AGOA Act to actually facilitate trade between United States and I think it was Ghana, the Western Africa, right? See what Kenya has that America wants or that black people want, and then facilitate that trade. That's the way you make money. The money is here. The resources are there. Match the two. That's what I would say. Stop trying to do it internally. If you can do it internally, that's fine. But the thing is, the best thing to do is match what's there. You know, make it there and sell it here. Okay, because the money is still here. Basically, I mean, the passport bros and people going repatriating. It's a process. Okay, it's a process. okay? Because you don't have regulated markets over there like you do here. It's a completely different process. So you have to be almost like a pioneer, and you got to really have a strong work ethic to actually go over there and actually start it from the ground up. That's why I always said the initial people going over there should be retirees first. To actually get a foothold in these particular countries, and then bring over younger people. Okay, younger people actually jumping the gun. Should be talking to your mother, your grandmother, folks that have a pension first, because they don't need to have a job. They don't need to have a clock. And then maybe the people that do remote work secondarily, and then you start putting in people with skills uh, like construction, mining, engineering, that kind of stuff. That's secondary. Okay. The three kind of people need to be going over there, and I've said this for like 15 years. Okay, retirees first. Okay, uh, people that fulfill a niche. Like say an oil engineer, uh, construction engineer, uh, electronics, whatever. Right, fill that niche. Okay, programmers fill a niche. Okay. Uh, Thirdly, remote work, which is new. Remote work is going to continue to boom. Earn your money, earn your money here and live over there, and then start a whole economy there. That's the way you do it. That's how you get a foothold. USA has some major advantage moving forward. US owns all the tech. No, they don't own all the technology. That's false. And the visas and business licenses do not have to clear a process. Learning myself. It depends on the country. There's drawbacks to everything. Anyhow, yeah. Last questions, and I'm out. Last questions. Road repair is ideal, but thing is, where does the investment to actually build a road come from? You need to talk to somebody like Hot Sauce or Swim Champ, because he's bringing Chinese money over there. So you need to talk to him. And what thing is, talk to the people that already have a pension. Got a whole lot of people that have Social Security or pension that are having a hard time making ends meet. Man, they're the ones that need to relocate over there, have a better life at a cheaper cost, and without all the stress. Anyhow, folks, Womack loves a burger. Okay. AI and farming. Yeah. Well, the biggest thing with farming over there is one, transportation, and two, refrigeration. Then that takes energy, fuel, and power. How do you move it from one place to the next, and how do you store it for more than a few days? That's the problem. Anyhow, we're out. What are your thoughts again on tech job for guys getting into coding? The biggest factor is probably going to be one, you know, get into it as fast as you can and learn as much as you can, because AI is going to actually take some of this stuff. I think the second thing is probably cybersecurity is probably the best thing to do. As far as that is concerned, the safest is because all these little devices um, have to be secure. They have to have people watching them. Okay, so so I would say cybersecurity right now is probably the most secure area in coding or programming. I said I remember that about supposed to be crazy lady trying to get into. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. You're behind. Okay, you're 20 minutes behind. Anyway, y'all. Chips. Okay. Eh, chips is still an Asian endeavor. You can get into it as they're actually going to build two plants in Arizona, but it's going to actually have like 9,000 people. Uh, for now, it is. It depends on the blue collar work, but yeah, for now it is. Then it's harder to build a machine to take a human being's place rather than software. Software is easy. Machines are not. They have to be built. Cybersecurity courses, and you have to really take the courses and really take advantage of the people that are here, that are into that stuff, and learn shortcuts and learn ins and out because you have like 4 or 5 people in this space that deal with cybersecurity, including the Black Brain Trust. Read your books, take your courses, and actually tap into the knowledge that's already here. Yeah, yeah. Ride it till the wheels fall off. No, they don't have the chokehold. Um, I've done look up China and IBM. Okay, China, IBM, AMD, 2015. Okay, the most advanced chips are made in 90% are made in Taiwan. Okay, guess who? Guess who paid for the chip designs? Guess who paid for it? Guess who paid for it? Adapting AI is not the best bet against. Nope, not really. Guess who paid for the designs that you're using, the most advanced designs that you know using. Okay, Nvidia. All those chips come out of what? Out of same part of the world. The only thing that's different is the etching uh, uh, for the fab, and that comes out of the Netherlands. And I've done videos on it, but go back and look 2015, 2016, and put in IBM in China. See what comes out. That's all I'll say. Do your homework. A lot of you guys don't read. That's an issue. Anyhow, y'all, I'm out. Peace out. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow, I think I'm trying to think what I'm going to talk about. Tomorrow I might do something special called emotional labor of men. I was actually talking about it in real life today. I think I'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll take a hit on it. Actually, show you a couple of clips from like Officer and Gentleman and Maverick about a male emotional labor and how it's actually processed differently from women. Lenovo did buy IBM's PC division because they were making the machines anyway. The IBM PC was actually made in Taiwan, so they sold the PC and laptop division to Lenovo because that's where they were being made anyway. They couldn't afford to keep it. Yeah, really. I'm trying to get this certain doctor to write a freaking book. I actually mentioned it on my show about a certain doctor has to write this book, but thing he's got to sell the first book to get to the second book first. So you guys have to help him sell this first book first. In fact, Doc, put your link to your book in the chat. I haven't even read it yet, but I'm going to buy 2 copies. I want to at least sell 1,000 copies of Doc's book. Well, I don't. Peter Zehan, he's an acolyte um, of Stratfor. Peter Zehan is mixed. I say 50% full of shit, 50% accurate. That's what I think of Peter Zehan. What doctor would that be? uh, What doctor would that be? He's the doctor with motherfucker in his last in his title. Like as in PhD motherfucker. So Peter's toilet water. No, he's been he comes out of go back and look up Peter Zahan and Stratford. That's where he came from. And Stratford has a certain worldview about America first, which I don't have a problem with. But the thing is, you got to take him with a grain of salt. What do you guys like about Peter Zahan anyway? What did you guys like about him? Because I've been listening to the guy for like 15 years. Well, more than that. More like 20 years. And we should go hit the link. Let's go ahead and since he's here, he would never do this on his own. Let me share the screen. That is our great doctor's new book. So we have to we have to believe in it because they won't. So I know I know it's not your usual $25, $30. It's expensive because they don't believe in it as much as we do. So to actually keep this run going, we have to invest in this book. This is actually an investment, okay, in the Black manosphere. So I'm saying it. Say buy two or more, get I'm gonna get my 25% off. Okay. But we did it for the man, not we can do it for this book for one of our own. Okay. So that is Doc's new book. Coming directly from what we actually talk about. The book is actually drawn from the manosphere. So invest in the book, invest in the manosphere. Anyhow, y'all, audio version. Hey, if we get the book sold, we might have an audio version. Okay, we could do that. Anyway, y'all, I'm out. See y'all tomorrow.